of the Senate, Honorable Kenneth Makelo Lusaka. My name is Edward Kabasa. I now hand you over so that you can follow this proceedings live, courtesy of KBC and PBU.
Okay, let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberations in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Order, members. Honorable Senators, as you may be aware, Article 1321B of the Constitution and Standing Order 22.1 of the Senate Standing Orders require the President to address a special sitting of Parliament once every year and at any other time. By a letter referenced SH5 Volume 209 of 7th March 2019 and addressed to the clerks of Parliament, the Office of the President requested to have the President address the Parliament scheduled for Thursday, 4th April 2019. The sitting has subsequently been gazetted via Gazette Notice number 2921 dated 26 March 2019. Honorable Senators, this is therefore to inform you that a special sitting of Parliament will be held on Thursday, 4th April 2019 at 2:30 p.m. in the National Assembly Chamber. Honorable Senators, this is an important occasion in the calendar of Parliament that provides an opportunity for His Excellency the President to deliver the State of the Nation address and to address the legislature and the people of Kenya on critical matters concerning the country. I therefore urge you to attend the special sitting. Honorable Senators, due to limited sitting space, Senators and members of the National Assembly will be at liberty to invite one guest each for the occasion. In this regard, you are hereby requested to provide the names of such guests to facilitate the preparation of formal invitation cards. The names should be submitted to the Office of the Clerk by Friday, 29th March 2019. Honorable Senators, the special sitting has been necessitated a rearrangement of parking slots. Consequently, the current Senators' parking area here at the main Parliament buildings will not be available for parking by Senators on Thursday, 4th April 2019. Alternative parking arrangements within the precincts of Parliament are being made and will be communicated to Senators before the special sitting. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 3, messages.
Okay, order, members. Senator Cherargei, can you find a seat? Otherwise, you'll stand throughout the... Okay, message from the National Assembly on the passage of the County Government's Amendment number 2 Bill, Senate Bills number 7 of 2017. Honorable Senators, I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Orders 41.3 and 4, I have received the following message from the Speaker of the National Assembly regarding the passage of the County Government Amendment number 2 Bill, Senate Bill number 7 of 2017. Pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 41.1 and 144 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby convey the following message from the National Assembly. Whereas the County Government Amendment Number 2 Bill, Senate Bills Number 7 of 2017, was passed by the Senate on Thursday, 21st June 2018, with amendments and referred to the National Assembly for consideration, and whereas the National Assembly passed the said bill on Tuesday, 26 March 2019, with further amendments attached herewith, now therefore in accordance with the provisions of Article 110 of the Constitution and Standing Order 41.1 and 144 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby convey the said decision of the National Assembly to the Senate. Honorable Senators, Article 112(1)(b) of the Constitution provides that if one House passes an ordinary bill concerning counties and the second House passes the bill in an amended form, it shall be referred back to the originating House for reconsideration. Honorable Senators, in this regard, I direct the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations to deliberate on the National Assembly amendments and report to the Senate. Further, pursuant to Standing Order 159(1) of the Senate Standing Orders, I direct that the National Assembly amendments to the County Government Amendment Number 2 Bill, Senate Bills Number 7 of 2017, be circulated to all senators and be listed in the order paper for consideration on Wednesday, 3rd April 2019. I thank you. There's also a message from the National Assembly on the passage of the provision of the Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill Number 11 of 2019. Honorable Senators, I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 41.3 and 4, I have received the following message from the Speaker of the National Assembly regarding the passage of the Assembly of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill Number 11 of 2019. Pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 41 and 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby convey the following message from the National Assembly. Whereas the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill Number 11 of 2019, was published via Kenya Gazette Supplement Number 18 of 6 March 2019 to provide for the equitable division of revenue raised nationally between the national and county governments in the 2019-2020 financial year. Whereas on 21st and 26 March 2019, the National Assembly considered and passed the said bill without amendments and the form attached hereon. Now, therefore, in accordance with the provisions of Article 110(4) of the Constitution and Standing Order 41 of the National Assembly Standing Order, I hereby refer the bill to the Senate for consideration. Honorable Senators, Standing Order Number 157 requires that a bill which originates in the National Assembly be proceeded with by the Senate in the same manner as a bill introduced in the Senate by way of first reading in accordance with Standing Order Number 139. I therefore direct that the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill Number 11 of 2019, be read a first time on Tuesday, 2nd April 2019. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Chair, Standing Committee on Agriculture. Next order. Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the Chair of the Standing Committee on Agriculture and Livestock and Fisheries, I'd like to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, 28 March 2019. Report of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on its consideration of the T-Bill, Senate Bill number 36 of 2018. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator Blair.
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's notice of motion, waiver of interest on help loans for graduates. Aware that Higher Education Loans Board has for over the last 2 decades become the leading financier of higher education in Kenya, whose mandate is to source funds and lend them as affordable loans, bursaries, and scholarships to students pursuing higher education in recognized institutions. Cognizant that the Ministry of Education announced that the government has lost Kenya shilling 7.2 billion through people defaulting payment on loans issued by HELP, translating to 74,692 graduates who have defaulted the loans payment, noting that measures were taken to enhance the HELP loan recovery process, which included a 6-month waiver of accumulated interest and penalties, and working with law enforcement officers to make sure the defaulters who are employed pay back the loans, concerned that they are graduates from institutions of higher learning who have not been gainfully employed for many years after graduation and are therefore burdened with loans that have accumulated interest and penalties that have no means to repay. Further concerned that when beneficiaries fail to remit their monthly installments for more than 3 months, HELP reports them to Credit Reference Bureau, preventing them from accessing loan facilities with any financial institution in Kenya, accessing employment opportunities in the government and major private and public listed companies, and the loan guarantors are pursued and forced to serve the HELP loan. Now, therefore, the Senate recommends that the Ministry of Education and HELP, 1, institute a 6-month full waiver of all the interest and penalties accrued, including the lifting of Credit Reference Bureau blacklisting for defaulters who are willing to pay their loans in entirety within the 6 months period. 2, embark on a 45-day sensitization exercise preceding the waiver, no later than 90 days after the passage of this motion. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Leader of Majority.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to give pursuant to Standing Order 52.1, I hereby present to the Senate the business of the House for the week commencing Tuesday, 2nd April 2019. On Tuesday, 2nd April 2019, the Senate Business Committee will meet to schedule the business of the Senate for the week. Subject to further directions by the Senate Business Committee, the Senate will also on Tuesday, 2nd April 2019, consider the bill scheduled for second reading, and those at the Committee of the Whole. The Senate will also continue with consideration of business that will not be concluded in today's order paper. On Wednesday, 3rd April 2019, the Senate will consider business that will not be concluded on Tuesday and any other business scheduled by SBC. Honorable Senators, 13 bills due for second reading and 19 bills at the Committee of the Whole stage. In this session, we have done well so far in terms of Senate business, and I appeal to you to maintain the tempo. Honorable Senators, let me take this opportunity to remind standing committees that petitions hold a very critical role in our governance as they avail a mechanism in the House for the public to exercise a right granted in Article 137 and 119 of the Constitution. I therefore once again urge committees to deliberate on them with the seriousness they certainly deserve. I note that a big number of petitions are still pending before the various committees. Last, Honorable Senators, and as the Speaker has confided, Pursuant to Article 132(1)(b) of the Constitution of Kenya, the President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces is scheduled to address special sitting of Parliament on Thursday, 4th April 2019 at 2:30 p.m. In this regard, the Senate business will not schedule regular business on that day. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you and hereby lay the statement on the table of the Senate.
Senator Kibiru. Senator Sakaja.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to Standing Order 48.1, I rise to seek a statement from the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations on the proper constitution of Nairobi City County Government. Mr. Speaker, by way of introduction, the Constitution in Article 179(1) and 2, the executive authority of a county is vested in and exercised by a county executive committee composed of the governor, deputy governor, and members appointed by the governor. Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate to note that the county executive committee of Nairobi County has been operating without being properly constituted as per the Constitution. It's been operating without a deputy governor for the last 15 months, as well as CECs. There was a ruling given on the Supreme Court on this, and they said it's constitutionally inconceivable to have a vacuum in the office of a deputy governor until the next election is held. The court advised that such nominees must be given in 14 days. The blatant ignoring and undermining of the role of a deputy governor sets a dangerous precedent to county governments and is a threat to the spirit of devolution. Mr. Speaker, in the statement, the committee should, number one, explain why the county executive has been operating without a deputy governor for the last 15 months in contravention of Article 179(1) and 2 of the Constitution, and state measures that have been put in place to address this matter. Number two, the committee must explain, or should explain, why the county government has been operating without the required number of county executive committee members, and state measures put in place to correct this situation. Number three, to explain why the county governor has failed to adhere to the ruling of the Supreme Court, which advised that governors should nominate fresh nominees within 14 days to replace the deputies who resign, die in office, or are impeached. And explain why Nairobi City County Assembly, Mr. Speaker, has been operating without a substantive speaker, and how soon this matter will be cleared, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, kindly, I would like to ask that you impress upon the committee, because this is not the first time we've raised this. The county government is not properly constituted, and this has led to a lack of proper service delivery to the people of Nairobi. The Senate, if the Senate cannot pronounce itself on this matter, I don't know what matter the Senate can adequately pronounce itself on and be respected. Thank you.
I hope the chair intergovernmental relations has heard, because that's it's actually in breach of the Constitution. So your committee must move in very fast, because this is going to set a bad precedence for other counties. I'd ask you to make sure that you provide us a report within the next 2 weeks. Leader of majority, you seem to want to say something.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to bring to the attention of the House, first of all, to agree with Senator Sakaja that this is a very, very important issue. And we don't want the president of Nairobi to be borrowed in the 46 counties that have not done the same, especially on the question of the deputy governor, presence of a deputy governor. You know, Mr. Speaker, the bill that you read, the communication from National Assembly, was passed by this House to concretize the provisions that of the Supreme Court and provide the procedure for replacements of a deputy governor. So I think it's incumbent also upon us to expedite that law so that that gap is not there. But there's a bigger question. Is there a number in law, and I hope the chair is listening, can we by law amend the relevant sections of the County Government Act to make it mandatory that there is a certain number within which a county government cannot operate without a certain number of county executive officers? so that or a certain number of chief executive officer for what kind of a period, so that then we run a more accountable and open governance. I understand for Nairobi there are many concerns around why those vacancies are there. Some people left, maybe others were sacked because of matters of corruption. There could be genuine reasons. But when it comes to replacements, we must have a legal framework. And it's not just about Nairobi. When the committee comes back, they should come back with suggestions also of what legal amendments we need to put in place, perhaps to make it better for all county governments to operate legally.
Senator Cleophas Malala.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I want to join my brother, the Leader of Majority, and the Nairobi Senator in emphasizing that this is a serious matter which needs our attention. And Mr. Speaker, I think what we need to start interrogating first, and even before we start looking at the legal framework, is the capacity of the governors that we have. And I want to state here, I am a resident of Nairobi from Monday to Friday, and I have very serious issues to deal with the governor of Nairobi in the manner in which he governs this city, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want the committee to go further and look into ways in which this capital city is being governed, Mr. Speaker. This calls for a constitutional audit and even a deeper interrogation on the quality of governors we are going to elect, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we've seen governors who have fake degrees, Mr. Speaker, and these fake degrees are being accommodated by IEBC because IEBC has got no database to ascertain whether these degrees are right or wrong, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Mr.
Honorable
Speaker,
Senator, try to stick to the issue at hand. You seem to be bringing in other issues that are not relevant.
Mr. Speaker, I think the situation in Nairobi of lacking a deputy governor, a speaker, and a number of CCs is as a result of poor governance. And poor governance has been contributed by lack of enough experience, lack of enough academic credentials.
Senator Chilayago, what is your intervention?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm alarmed. My very good friend Malala, and we were campaigning in Ugenya, my very good friend Senator Malala has indicated that there is a governor without a degree. Mr. Speaker, we are supposed to do oversight. Would I be in order to ask Senator Malala to name this governor so that we can deal with this governor perpendicularly?
Senator Malala, new substance yet?
Mr. Speaker, I think the safe way to go around it is we need to do an of governors who have fake degrees, Mr. Speaker. The IEBC has got no capacity to ascertain the original degrees and the fake degrees. Mr. Speaker, as we move forward to...
What's your point of order, Senator Murkomen?
So, Speaker, I'd like you to rule Senator Malala out of order, Mr. Speaker, because, Mr. Speaker, we are discussing a specific situation of Nairobi and a governance and feeling of positions in Nairobi, which, Mr. Speaker, in my honest opinion, there is no legal, in some of the things we have suggested, there is no legal, it's not imperative in law to do certain things, but it's good in governance. And, Mr. Speaker, the governor of Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, is being discussed. So is it in order to start to insinuate, Mr. Speaker, that the governor of Nairobi does not have a degree, when I know Governor Sonko, Mr. Speaker, posted a picture when he was in class in Methodist University. Just like another picture I've seen today posted of another person who was hiking a train in Germany, Mr. Speaker, to indicate that they went to school. So, Mr. Speaker, is it in order?
What is your point of order, Senator Sakaja?
Mr. Speaker, I have raised very substantive issues about constitutional provisions on the constitution of Nairobi City County in terms of the dockets, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, is it in order that we're now being sidetracked to a different conversation? Because I don't want us to talk about the personality of the individual. I am talking about the issues that really are making Nairobians not access services. Can we kindly, Mr. Speaker, stick to those issues? If we want to discuss a governor in our standing orders, Mr. Speaker, we bring a substantive motion to talk about the individual. But as it is, Mr. Speaker,
what's your point of information,
it is a simple.
Senator?
I need to want to be informed.
Do you want to be informed, Senator Sakaja?
I'm not sure whether they can. You'll be responding at the end, but let me be informed, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
I want to inform the Senator of Nairobi that the issues that he mentioned are very clear to our committee, and we'll deal with the issues, not side issues that are being mentioned here.
Mr. Speaker, that is not information as per our standing orders. That is an undertaking which he should give after people have deliberated on the issue. So please, Mr. Speaker, millions of residents of Nairobi want services. The issue of personality, the IBC cleared Governor Sonko, means he has papers. I don't doubt that he has a degree. I don't doubt it at all. But what Senator Malala is doubting is whether that degree is working. That is what Senator Malala is questioning, Mr. Speaker.
That's why I cautioned Senator Malala that you are likely to veer into areas that will land you in problems. So if you want to discuss a specific governor, you bring a substantive motion. Otherwise, stick to the issues that Senator Sakaja has raised.
Thank you. As I wind up, Mr. Speaker, I want to be guided accordingly, but I want to encourage the committee to delve and interrogate the matter deeply and even look into issues as to what led to the absence of the deputy governor, the speaker, the CECs. You will end up finding that it borders on incompetency. And incompetency, Mr. Speaker.
Order, Senator Malala. Let the committee investigate the matter and bring a report. You seem to be giving them some direction on what they should look at.
Yeah. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that this matter is a serious matter, which requires even deeper interrogation on the matters pertaining Nairobi. Nairobi is our capital city. This is the heartbeat of our country. This is our economic hub, Mr. Speaker, and therefore we must look Nairobi with a special eye, microscopic eye, to ensure that Nairobi is handled with competent people. Because, Mr. Speaker, I have people from Kakamega who reside in this town, and we have people from Bungoma, people from Western region, and we need a governor who is competent.
Senator Malala, you are...
Thank you.
You are out of order. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance to also add my voice on this very important statement by Senator Sakaja, the Senator of Nairobi. And from the onset, I want to congratulate him for having really thought of this very important concept concerning the county government of Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, in Article 176 of the Constitution, there exists a county government. Allow me to read. Article 176, there shall be a county government for each county, consisting of a county assembly and a county executive. Every county government shall decentralize its function and the provision of its services to the extent that it's efficient and practicable to do so. And in this particular case, Mr. Speaker, the county government of Nairobi is totally contravening the Constitution of Kenya. And Kenyans fought for the Constitution because of the gains that Kenyans envisage in this Constitution. And therefore, for the county government of Nairobi to operate outside the law of this country, therefore, calls for the committee of devolution in this house and call for this house to really look seriously into this matter. Mr. Speaker, We cannot allow a county government to run its issues as if it is not in Kenya. We cannot allow a county government with an county assembly that has no speaker. We cannot allow a county government to run its affairs with no executive officers, and the Constitution calls for that. We need to come up as a house to seriously look into this, because this will encourage other county governments to behave the same. All of us, we have an interest in the Nairobi County government, and we see a lot of recklessness in the running of this county, and therefore I also urge the committee to urgently look into this matter and report to the House, and we need the assistance of this House as a whole to deal with this matter.
Senator Zani Agnes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think this is a very important statement, and exactly and properly contextualized within the Senate. We don't want to set precedent, because this is how it starts slowly. You know, you get away with 5 years without a deputy governor, it becomes the trend. You get away with 2 CECs, you get a trend. Article 179(3) is very, very clear about even the composition of CECs. The number of members appointed under Clause 2, this is referring to CECs, shall not exceed a 1/3 of the number of members of the county assembly if the assembly has less than 30 members, so at least a third, and 10 if the county assembly has 30 or more members. So that already gives us the rule to the number of the CECs who are meant to be in each of the county assemblies. So it's very, very critical that that is taken into consideration. 2, even when we just oppose this issue and look at it and think about also other counties as well, that is fine. Because as much as we're talking about Nairobi County, maybe it is a good time to also just do a quick audit of the other counties and see whether those CCs in those counties are well contextualized. Later on, if the committee has time, they can even go into the qualifications and to ensure that the work is done. Those CCs are not there because they are the governor's friends. They are there because they are meant to take care of different components of county government to ensure that the trickling down of services gets down to the county. So somebody is in charge of water, another in finance, another in food. So if we have a docket that doesn't have the person, it means that docket is going to be in problems, in the sense that that work might not be getting done by somebody else. So I suggest, I'd like to also include, Mr. Speaker, that as this committee is looking at Nairobi County, maybe they can browse across other counties and also see what is happening. The issue of a speaker within the county assemblies is very, very critical. Some time back, I think in the 11th Parliament, we started a bill for deputy governors and giving them clear roles and definitions. I don't know whether that bill saw the light of day or whether it was extinguished midway, but that is exactly what needs to be done, to have clarity in terms of roles, because these are constitutional positions and there's a reason for this. So, Mr. Speaker, as I wind up, I think even as the committee deliberates on this, let them extend their scope a little bit and just see what is happening with other counties as well, and give us the health of the county as far as office bearers in the county as per the Constitution and what is the position in the various counties. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chararge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I want to commend Senator Sakaja for this very important statement. I think for the last for some time, as a committee of JLAC and devolution, we have been looking at some of the amendments, and the courts did pronounce itself for now deputy governors can be replaced and how to make our county governments very efficient. I want to say it's very important. I know a few months ago, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are also facing problems of issues of speakers. And I think the more we stabilize our county governments, the better for all of us to prevent even corruption or lack of proper governance structure in our county governments. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say it is very important, everybody, and that is why there is even a bill that has been sponsored by Senator Aaron Cheruyot to try and remove Nairobi City County from among the 47 county governments because of its significance and importance, not only in Kenya as a country, but because of its strategic position in East and Central Africa and being gateway to many of Africa's issues. I know that's a long shot in terms of trying to achieve some of these rectify, because Nairobi is very critical, it's an administrative center, it controls most of the GDP, so any senator in this country, any leader in this country, any person must be keen, Mr. Speaker, sir, of ensuring that Nairobi City County runs efficiently, effectively, because in one way or another, all of us are affected. So I hope the committee, which I'm part of it, will sit on this, will discuss and ensure that we prosecute this matter expeditiously as much as possible. But we don't need some of these things. Governor Sonko should just, the governor of Nyeri, where Senator Ephraim Maina comes from, has replaced the deputy governor the other day. So why is it hard for Governor Sonko to get a deputy governor so that the people of Nairobi can be happy and always be happy, so that we don't need to, these unnecessary, these are trivial matters that at the level of Governor Sonko you should just address. And I think also the party leadership and the Jubilee, we must intervene and assist him. If Governor Sonko feels that he is incapacitated in another way or of not replacing a deputy governor, Jubilee as a party, we can sit and assist him to get a suitable deputy governor and ensure the people of Nairobi County are well catered for. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Pareno, Judith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support Senator Sakaja on this statement. And Mr. Speaker, this is not the first time that the Senator has brought this issue to this House. I think this is either the second or the third time. This is the third time that this issue has been brought before this House. So it therefore calls upon us. And Mr. Speaker, I ask that this matter be treated as urgent, having come to this House for the third time and having had no tangible result in terms of getting to see Nairobi move. Mr. Speaker, it is our right. We all live in this Nairobi. It is our right to have the representation that is supposed to be there according to law. We are supposed to have a governor in Nairobi. We are supposed to have a deputy governor. This is by law. It is not by choice. So it is not upon Sonko, Governor Sonko, to hold the Nairobi at ransom by not appointing a deputy governor. It is a requirement of the law. It is a right of all of us who stay in this Nairobi to have this kind of administration to run the county. Mr. Speaker, I've seen Governor Sonko going around even to help others in other counties. Yes, it could be a noble idea, but how do you run to help others in other counties when you're not even sorting out your own county in terms of the leadership that is required, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, then you have a county that has trouble with deputy governor, then it has trouble with the speaker. Then what happens? Mr. Speaker, it is time we take measures. It is time we intervened through the relevant committee. It is time for Governor Sonko to be summoned before the relevant committee of this House to explain why he's derailing devolution, why he's derailing the Nairobi County from running by not appointing a deputy governor. Mr. Speaker, I ask that the committee urgently, if you can direct the committee to urgently handle this matter so that we bring it to a conclusion. Asante, Bwana Speaker.
Senator Kangata Irungu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, myself, I don't blame Sonko personally. Reason being, I blame myself. I blame my Committee of Legal and Justice Affairs. Reason being, there is no express provision in the law that expressly commands Sonko, for instance, to appoint a deputy governor within a certain period of time. I think, personally, we should take the initiative. We come up with a clear provision. Otherwise, strictly speaking, I don't see anything that...
What's your point of order, Senator Sakaja?
Mr. Speaker, is the majority deputy whip, nonetheless no one else in this House, in order to say there is no provision, while this House itself has passed legislation, and on top of that, there's a Supreme Court judgment that gave 14 days for that to be done. Is he in order, or was he just ill-informed? Let me not say misinformed. Maybe just ill-informed. In that, being a lawyer, of serious repute, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kangata, you are not on record. What's your point of order,
Yes,
Senator?
yes. I can allow me to reply. Then I will address myself.
Order.
Mr.
Order,
Speaker,
Senator
allow me
Kangata. You are not on record.
Is the deputy whip in order, Mr. Speaker, to try to give us an answer of a statement that has just been laid in this house without even making an attempt in the committee, which he sits, to do much more investigation on this important statement? Again, Mr. Speaker, this statement has been in his committee twice, and they have never brought an explanation to this house. And he's attempting already to give us an answer.
Senator Chararge, what's your point of information?
I'm trying to inform Mary Senator.
Are you informing or you are trying to inform? You know, you have to be clear.
I'm informing.
Okay.
Senator, Mary Senator.
Order, Senator. She says she doesn't want...
Because Senator Kangata sits in my committee.
Order, she doesn't want to be informed.
Okay.
Senator Malala Cleophas.
Mr. Speaker, is this honorable member in order and the minority whip in order to contribute on a statement that he has not even had. He has not even read the statement. The senator was out of the chambers. He has just walked in and sneaked in to sit next to me, Mr. Speaker. He has no idea of what we are discussing, and he has started contributing. Mr. Speaker, how I wish you give him adequate time to go and refresh himself to look into the statement before he starts contributing.
Senator Kinywa, what is your point of order?
I am aware that where the majority whip was following, it's not necessary for him to be here, but he was following from where he was.
You are out of order, Senator Kinywa. Senator Kangata can defend himself. Let him confirm that he heard what the question was so that he remains relevant.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, allow me to address two issues that have been raised by the Honorable Senator from Nairobi. Issue number one concerning a bill or a law, whether that compels the deputy governor to appoint a deputy governor within certain period. Mr. Speaker, it is true that bill was passed here, but that bill has not yet become a law. It is still in the National Assembly. So therefore, I am right. But yes, it has not been signed by the president to become a law. You know there's a procedure of a bill becoming a law. The president must sign it, it has to be gazetted. And therefore, until that happens, then we do not have a law. That is my position. Number two, on the issue
Order, Senator Kangata. What is your point of order, Senator Sakaja?
Mr. Speaker, I would hate to educate a lawyer about the law. This country has different ways through which, or other sources of law. One of them is statute, which is the process through which that bill has gone and is now waiting for assent. And tomorrow when you go to State House, we'll tell the president to sign it. But another way is precedence. In a common law jurisdiction like ours, a declaration by the Supreme Court forms part of the law of this country. And if the Supreme Court says that this resolution must be made, and I can see Senator Okongo Mogeni is agreeing with me and Senator Faki, that a judgment of the Supreme Court forms part of our law in this country. Mr. Speaker, could you kindly ask the Senator for Muranga to take time and read my statement and address those issues, because he is continuing to embarrass himself as he pronounced himself on this matter.
Yes, Senator Kangata, the Supreme Court did pronounce itself on this matter. Therefore, it's on record. And as a lawyer, you need to... What's your point of order, Senator Kirarige?
It is when you know, when first year sources of law, one of them is court decision and judgment. And it is used to grow legal jurisprudence. I don't know, is my senior in profession, but is taking a wrong tangent in terms of interpreting this law and the issue, because the Supreme Court, which is the highest, has pronounced itself on this matter. And if it is hard, Senior Counsel Senator Okongo Mugeni is behind him. You can, Mr. Speaker, you can give him 2 minutes to console SC Okongo Mugeni.
Order, Senator Kangata. Okay. You are not on record. You relax.
Mr. Speaker, I'm so surprised that members of this honorable house can say judiciary has the power to make laws. That it cannot have that power. That is what is called making law while seated at the bench. Mr. Speaker, it is true the courts have power to interpret law. But even if they interpret law, they do not make laws. That explains why Kenyans are unhappy when we see Supreme Court, for instance, or even Court of Appeal, saying they are going to lower the age of consent, of sexual consent. It's not their work. It is your work. There is the concept of separation of power, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chilayako, what is your point of?
There is the concept of separation of power.
Point of order.
Order, Senator Kangata.
Mr. Speaker, I hate to interrupt my learned junior, but you know the law is actually what the court declares it to be. So we do not want to bore other members with legal matters, but if the Supreme Court declared something to be what it is, then that is the law as far as dispute in terms of what it is it's supposed to be. So I want to beseech my learned friend, Senator Kangata, to respect the mandate of the Supreme Court or any other court to declare the law as what has been declared by the court.
Senator Kangata, when you see so many points of order on the same matter, you need to re-examine what you are saying.
To convince you to disagree or to disallow that point completely. Because if you allow that point, the powers of this honorable chamber in the National Assembly are going to be negated. Mr. Speaker, he is espousing what is called the jurisprudence that argues law is as per what judges say. But there is another argument, another major jurisprudence that argues. That argument is very bad. It makes judges become what we make lawmakers. It is not their work. It is your work as honorable members. The best jurisprudence, Mr. Speaker, you should uphold is the one that argues. It is the work of lawmakers to make laws. The work of courts is to interpret laws. Otherwise, if you now change that, if you change that, we shall go into a very slippery ground.
Okay,
where laws are being made
Senator
at the bench.
Senator Kangata.
And therefore, allow me
Senator
to
Omogeni, what's your point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think now we need the wisdom of senior counsel. And I want to urge my good friend, Senator Kangata, not to argue on the obvious, Mr. Speaker. All over the world, Mr. Speaker, we have what we call judge-made law. What we call judicial review in this country was developed by the Supreme Court of America. And that becomes part of the sources of law. Mr. Speaker, if the Supreme Court has pronounced itself and directed that the good governor of Nairobi should appoint his deputy within 14 days, that is the final court in this country, as per the Constitution. So we should not belabor the point, and I urge you, Mr. Speaker, to give direction that Senator Kangata is out of order.
Senator Kangata, no, you are now, I know you have come from Egypt last night, but that's no reason to drag us behind in many years. Conclude your matter on, please, on the subject matter. Conclude, because I'll give you 2 minutes.
Thank you. My position is the finding by the Supreme Court on this issue was advisory. It is only,
what's your point of order?
It was advisory,
Senator
which is not binding.
Order, Senator Kangata.
Mr. Speaker, this house is a house of leaders of the citizens of the Republic of Kenya. It should not, and I am calling upon your guidance and the wise judgment and the quick action so that this house does not dwell on illegalities. They are lawyers. Lawyers have their space in court. But, Mr. Speaker, if you see this debate throughout, it is not about the leadership, about Nairobi County. It's not about the necessity of the deputy governor in Nairobi, but now it has been going around about legalities between people called the lawyers, who can cause a lot of problem in life. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I'm calling you to save the House and get it to go back to the core business.
Okay, point noted. That's why I told Senator Kangata to wind up. Senator Chiloyako, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I want to rise and ask you to save this House from Senator Kangata, because Senator Kangata is saying that what the Supreme Court said was advisory. What we know, some of us who were serious when we were going to law school know that courts do not act in vain. Courts do not engage in pedantic arguments. So when the court pronounces itself on something, it's what it is supposed to do. It's not pedantic, it's not academic argument, it's not obiter. So we cannot come here and say that whatever court says is advisory. We would be promoting anarchy. So, Mr. Speaker, would I be in order to ask you to save us from the jurisprudence according to Senator Kangata, because we'll get into murky waters.
Senator Kangata, wind up your discussion on that matter so that we make progress.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I urge anyone who thinks the governor has done anything legally wrong to go to Supreme Court and push for contempt of court. For me, I strongly believe the finding was either an arbiter dictum or it was advisory. It is this House that has the power to make laws that then sets timelines through which he can do what he's supposed to do. It's not the work of courts to make laws. That is my position. Thank you.
Okay, Chair, Intergovernmental Committee, you have had. Can you provide an answer in the next 2 weeks?
I'll provide the answer in 2 weeks, but if I need more time, I will let the House know.
Okay. Next statements, Senator Kinyua.
Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 51(1)A to make a statement relating to matter for which the committee is responsible. Mr. Speaker, on Tuesday, 12 March 2019, Senator Mohamed Faki, MP, made a statement pursuant to Senate Standing Order 47(1) on issue regarding the County Assembly of Mombasa. In his statement, the senator stated that the County Assembly of Mombasa had invited 3 County Executive Committee members for a meeting which their respective committee, but instead, the county executive member issued threats to dissolve the county assembly, claiming that they had failed in their mandate. This was considered as an act of intimidation of county assembly members, which prevented them from performing their oversight role. This matter was referred to the Senate Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations for view and to submit a report to the House within 14 days. Mr. Speaker, the committee met the governor of Mombasa on Monday, 18th March 2019 at 12 p.m. Some of the highlights of the meeting with the governor are: 1, that he was aware that he does not have power to dissolve the County Assembly of Mombasa. 2, that he did not intimidate the County Assembly of Mombasa in any way. He has a good working relationship with the County Assembly of Mombasa. 3, his County Executive Committee member have always responded to the County Assembly invitation and summons. 4, he is not aware of and is not party to any lobby group that is collecting signatures for dissolution of the County Assembly. Mr. Speaker, the committee met the Speaker of Mombasa County Assembly on Thursday, 21st March 2019 at 11 a.m. The committee had intended to meet the Speaker prior to the meeting of Governor. However, the Speaker had indicated that he was not well. Some of the highlights from the meeting with the Speaker include: 1, the impeachment of CEC transport was per the mandate conferred to Mombasa County Assembly by the Kenyan Constitution. 2, the County Assembly of Mombasa had invited the CEC transport on numerous occasions, invitations which were not honored. 3, the CEC transport was being impeached due to incompetence. The impeachment process is ongoing. On Wednesday, 20th March 2019, the motion of impeachment of the transport CEC was adopted. The CEC transport will meet the committee formed by the County Assembly of Mombasa to look into the matter. Mr. Speaker, the committee intends to meet the Governor of Mombasa again as follow-up on the issue raised by the Speaker, and if need be, travel to Mombasa. Additionally, the committee would like to see the outcome of the impeachment process before reporting back to the House. The committee therefore requests an additional 21 days to complete this matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, I don't see any interest. Next order.
Order number 8, motion. Report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the county government's infrastructure projects.
Senator Malala, you have 5 minutes to contribute. To second.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to continue seconding the report on the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the county government infrastructure project comprising county executive headquarters offices, assembly chambers, and offices and county state officers' residences. Mr. Speaker, I think I want to continue congratulating the committee and the chairperson of Committee on Finance. Mr. Speaker, as I do that, Mr. Speaker, I want to remind this House that Article 201 of the Constitution of Kenya on the principles of public finance provides that public money shall be used in a prudent and responsible way, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this report has clearly stated how counties have used monies on non-core projects, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have counties which are grappling with lack of basic amenities. Mr. Speaker, Schedule 4 of our Constitution clearly states on what functions have been devolved and what the county government should prioritize when it comes to the devolved functions, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have the ECDs, which is a core mandate of the county governments. We have the health centers, which is a core mandate of the county government. We have county governments which do not have dispensaries. People walk kilometers, 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers, just to access a basic health amenity, Mr. Speaker. And yet, they are spending millions and millions and millions of shillings on doing a house for the governor, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this report has recommended various ways in which we are going to curb the misappropriation of public funds and also prioritize projects, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think when you read Article 10(2)(d) on national values and principles of governance, it demands for sustainable development, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is therefore prudent for county governments to look into ways in which they are spending their monies, Mr. Speaker. It is quite unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, that we have county governments which are spending 800 million shillings to come up with a county assembly chamber, Mr. Speaker. Yet, the residents of that respective county, Mr. Speaker, are grappling in abject poverty, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think it is important that we look into the recommendations of the committee, but the big question that I kept on asking the chairperson is that what next after tabling this report? Mr. Speaker, we need to ensure that the resolutions of this House are being respected by the respective constitutional offices. We need to forward the resolutions of this House to the Controller of Budget to ensure that the recommendations on the ceiling of the amount of money that should be used in coming up with the county government's headquarters, governor's residence, speaker's residence, are upheld, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we need to find a mechanism in which we can monitor the implementation of the various resolutions of this House. Because, Mr. Speaker, we have turned to be a house of debating, coming up with very good suggestions, yet they are not being implemented, Mr. Speaker. So how I wish the chairperson, through his oversight role, to ensure that the resolutions of this report is implemented to the letter. Let us share the resolution of this report to the Controller of Budget, the Commission of Revenue Allocation, and other relevant offices which deal with the disbursement of monies to the respective counties. Mr. Speaker, it is also prudent and wise enough if we shared the resolutions of these reports to the respective counties as they come up with their annual budget estimates to consider the resolution of this House. Because, Mr. Speaker, the Constitution gives this House the mandate to represent counties and oversight revenue that is being disbursed to counties. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the committee did a good job in ensuring that it does an audit on where we have reached as pertains to the implementation of the non-core projects to the counties. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to second this motion and ask the committee to continue pressing on specifically on the issues of implementation on the recommendations. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the county government infrastructure projects comprising county executive headquarter offices, assembly chambers and offices, and county state officers' residence laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 29th November 2018. Senator Cheriot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I support the work that has been done by this committee, the Committee of Finance, on this very important issue that was beginning to threaten our work as legislators, because many a times we went to public functions, and one of the questions that I remember being asked at one particular time is that what informs some of these decisions that you people make in Nairobi and want to force down our throats as residents of a particular county. Mr. Speaker, many of the residents that we represent in this House do not have the luxury or the latitude to understand and know that the various government institutions operate independently but also interdependently with each other. And therefore, when SRC goes on to give a directive like they have given on this issue of a county speaker residence, county headquarters, many of the people that we represent, when they find you in public forums, they ask you that the MCAs are telling us that you have instructed them from Nairobi that they are supposed to put up a county assembly worth 400 or 500 million shillings. And while they are speaking, Mr. Speaker, many of the times the people that share those sentiments with you perhaps have only 1 meal per day. If they've come to the meeting, they're walking bare feet. Many of them haven't paid school fees for their children, and the many challenges that you're aware of, Madam Speaker, that the residents of this country continue to face. And therefore, it was important that this committee gets to sit down and, in response to the cries that were being brought before us by members of the public on this particular issue, to sit down and have a round-the-table discussion with the Council of Governors, with the County Assemblies Forum, with the SRC, and including even Public Works. Though I did not sign this report, Madam Speaker, it's not because that I do not agree with it, but I may not have been around to sign it, but I agree with it entirely, and I participated in the decision-making that went into these recommendations. And more so, Madam Speaker, having listened through this phase of building county government residence, and including the headquarters as well, Madam Speaker, this is an issue that has been before this House for a long time, including even last Parliament, where I think it was 5 counties that were found not to have any infrastructure that will support county headquarter offices, and therefore we recommended. Therefore, I want to say that on the recommendations by this committee about rescinding the decision of SRC circular that was issued on 24th October 2016, county governments should consider vacating that decision. And I agree entirely because SRC, Madam Speaker, as we know it, though on many occasions when as members of parliament we speak about SRC, it is considered that we do so based on only our interaction with them on issues of salary. But that is not the case, Madam Speaker. I do not think that the drafters of our constitution envisioned an institution that will work in such a callous manner as SRC continues to work, where they make very strong decisions that affect the operations of counties without even due consultations with very relevant institutions like the House of Parliament. Because when they appeared before us, we asked them, by the time you're determining and agreeing on these very huge figures that you're proposing, didn't you know that the people that reside in these counties have representatives whom they've sent to come to this house, and this house is a primary institution that does the budget of the country, Madam Speaker. And if there was an institution, before even going to public works to get quotations, before going to county assemblies forum to inform them of the decisions that they had made, they ought to first have sought the opinion and the concurrence of this House, Madam Speaker, before issuing this circular. And therefore, I agree. And it is not only on this particular issue that I found SRC to be operating in a way that is not constitutional, because the spirit of and the national values that are espoused in our Constitution, Chapter 10 of our Constitution, Madam Speaker, include consultation and cooperation, where you, as government entities, get to engage each other and speak one to the other from a point of understanding, and as you make decisions, know how they'll affect the other. Even today, Madam Speaker, we have woken up to the news of what SRC intends to do to allowances of civil servants, you know, and the decisions that they want to make. It is really unfortunate. I do not think they properly understand their mandate, much as it is to consider the remuneration of state officers and public servants. Consultation must be key in their decision-making. And therefore, that is why, as a committee, we have looked at all the issues that have been placed before us, and we have said SRC erred in fact and in law. And the figures that they were giving cannot be supported by any evidence, cannot be justified. Even morally, it is just wrong. There is no way that you can convince me in a country like we live in, like Kenya right now, Madam Speaker, where we cannot even feed our own population, that leaders want to live in the kind of opulence that SRC want to put us into, where you want to build a residence for a county speaker for 150 million Kenya shillings in a place like Homa Bay or Siaya, Madam Speaker. I know Homa Bay, for example, or even a county like my own, Kericho. If you are even to pay rent for the next 50 years, you cannot spend 150 million for a decent house where a county speaker can live and have residents even to receive other guests if that was the thinking that they had in mind. And therefore, this circular was not properly thought out, and I agree. Of course, Madam Speaker, there is the issue also of county government headquarters. This committee has not only told SRC that you did not do your work properly, but we have actually gone ahead and given proposals which we think can be justified before the people that we represent, that if I was to face the people of Kericho, for example, and explain to them the reasoning behind the figures that are now being proposed on what it will take, why we want a county governor's residence not to go beyond 45 million shillings or a deputy governor's at 35 million and county assembly speaker's home at 35 million shillings, I will be able to give them a justification, Madam Speaker, that this investment, first of all, does not belong. You know, one of the things residents of our counties have never been able to do is to separate the office from the office holder. And therefore, when people hear of 45 million shillings, they look at the governor and say, what has he done to deserve a home that is worth 45 million Kenya shillings? I believe that our county governor's residence, this is a home or the seat of power of a particular county. It is therefore symbolic, and the amount that you are proposing is not on the higher side, Madam Speaker. Of course, on the issue of county headquarters, capping it at $500 million Kenya shillings, in my opinion, Madam Speaker, this is well thought out. And we are aware that there are counties, especially those that did not have strong municipalities before that left former municipality offices that were good enough to be used as county government headquarters. 500 million Kenya shillings should be enough for them to put up a decent structure where people can visit and also be proud. You know, we also need to teach our citizens not to be this myopic and imagine that every time, you know, sometimes you find leaders also, we decide that because we do not like, you do not like the county speaker, for example, and you tell people that this guy is misleading you. Why is he putting up an assembly worth this amount of money? I think as leaders, we also owe it to the people that vote to us, or God, vote to us to come to this house, to be magnanimous enough and rise up and be able to be above petty parochial politics, Madam Speaker, that goes beyond just looking at a figure for what it is. You know, people must know also that when a visitor, for example, if a county was to have a state visit by a visiting head of state, for example, or even visitor from a county, other county governments, we should be able to be received at the county headquarters where you can get a brief of all the ongoings in that particular county. Finally, Madam Speaker, the county governments also have been asked, thanks to the recommendations of this committee, that they should be able to construct county assembly chambers that are within certain limits. Madam Speaker, we have visited certain county assemblies as members of this house, and you sympathize with our members of county assemblies, where they're seated in a chamber where it does not even inspire the thoughts of a leader. You know, because you're squeezed in a particular place, you do not have services such as what we have here, a good microphone for you to be able to articulate and share the issues of the people that you represent, you know, or a good climate for you to be able to sit and discuss, engage your constituents. Many of our MCAs do not have even offices. They operate from the back seats of their vehicles, and that is where they attend to constituents. And therefore, I do not think it is wrong and unjustifiable for us to be able to give the proposals where we have gone ahead, and instead of just proposing what SRC had done, because they had given a blank check to everyone, we have proposed that for a county assembly, because we have different sizes. The size of a county assembly that is needed for Nairobi, that has over 85 wards, cannot be the same for, say, Kericho, that has 30 wards, Madam Speaker. And therefore, we have gone ahead and done a breakdown as a committee on what should be the expected figure of each of the county assemblies, depending on the number of size, where you're putting up a chamber together with the county assembly offices for members of the county assembly to be able to debate and do their work expeditiously. These are modern parliaments, Madam Speaker. And one very key and important issue is that we have also asked if it is possible for the designs to be synchronized, such that it doesn't matter if I am in Mandera or in Kakamega or in Mombasa or in Lodwar. The minute I spot that particular building, because of the design and architecture that has been sent to this house for approval, you are able to identify that this is a county assembly. Madam Speaker, it's just neat, it is beautiful, there is nothing so significant about it, but it's just good order. It is what progressive societies do. We have visited many other countries, Madam Speaker, that have devolution as a form of government, and the minute you're able to spot certain designs of a building, you know that this is the seat of power for this particular county, municipality, or state, Madam Speaker. And therefore, I want to say that this recommendation, Madam Speaker, by the committee is well thought out. There is also the final thing, Madam Speaker, that counties, because we are told that there are some counties which had awarded contracts that were above recommended figures, should consider renegotiating with a view to adjusting the contract sum. I think we had 2 or 3 counties that had awarded contracts worth almost 800 million to $1 billion to put up very huge offices that cannot be justified with the ability of, or the size of the county governments that those county assemblies do exist. And therefore, I think this is a very good recommendation. I agree with the sentiments of the leader for minority, that our implementation committee, we should be able to write, for example, on this final recommendation, to these specific counties, because they are known. We know which are the county assemblies that are putting up offices whose price is way beyond what this committee is recommending. They should be able to be advised and told that this is way beyond your class. Please renegotiate with the contractor. The beautiful thing about all these contracts is that they were done in consultation with Public Works, and therefore there's a possibility of scaling it down so as to meet the figures. Otherwise, the people that we represent will always think that all we do in this house is to find ways of making the lives of leaders comfortable, while the people that we represent, they continue to suffer and wallow in raw abject poverty, Madam Speaker. And therefore, with those very many remarks, I want to say that I support this report, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cherargei Samson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to commend the Committee of Finance and Budget through its chair for the wonderful work. I can see they started in November 2018, and now we have a good report. And I have read through their recommendations, which are very far-reaching. And it is good that they have rejected the SRC recommendations, because, Madam Speaker, we were treated during the first generation of devolution, where governors were constructing houses up to a tune of even 1 billion Kenyan shillings. And when it comes to priorities and even CIDP, annual development plans, most of the wananchi or residents would ask, what is the priority over all these issues? And Madam Speaker, curiously, it is important that we have put capping. You know, even let me begin from what my colleague Senator Aaron has said, that we should ensure the prototype or standardization of county headquarters, deputy residents, governors' residents, deputy governors' residents, the speaker's residents, the parliament or the chambers that the county assembly will be sitting or having their plenary sessions on both committee work, Madam Speaker, should have a particular symbol and heritage. That is the pride of every country or every region. Say that when you are in Turkana County or you are in Mombasa County, you can, with its unique design, it represents a specific symbolism of purpose of ensuring that devolution works for the people, Madam Speaker. And it is very interesting that there are many, and I want to agree that we need county headquarters that looks very, very convenient for the use, because these are county headquarters that do not belong to specific governors. They belong to the residents, where they can, their issues be handled and many other issues. I remember the capping of 500 million to the county headquarters, Madam Speaker, is very important, because I remember when my governor was elected, he's still using the provincial administration offices in Kapsabet, and therefore he's like squeezing the county commissioner. Yeah, and I'm happy that the PS, permanent secretary in charge of housing and infrastructure, was able to intervene at some point, because the new governor wanted, to bring down the new bill, the office that were being constructed by predecessor, because of course of vested interest or variation, to ensure that maybe the contractor that was there, we get a new one and variation, and that is where corruption would come in. But I want to thank, and that is why we need some of these check mechanisms, the oversight that the committee should do, because if it was not the PS in charge of housing and infrastructure in this country to intervene on the newly constructed or underway construction of Kapsabet or Nandi County headquarters that will house the office of the governor and other departments, then it would have been very unfortunate to just bring down a building based on political vested interest or issues of variation, where people will be able to in quotes, eat the money from that project. And therefore, I think that is why I agree that the oversight should be done. And I'm happy that the construction of Kapsabet county office, that should have a modest. We agree that the former provincial commissioner's residence or district commissioner's residence were at that time at that level. But in as much as our governors and county assembly speakers wants to live large, to live like kings, But we should have more modesty as a way of ensuring. And I know most governors maybe do not live in their counties. And I've seen the committee, like even my own governor, Nandi Governor Elgeyo Marakwet, West Pokot, Omabe, and Tharaka Nithi, do not have houses. And therefore, they are forced to live outside the county. Like further that the governors for Nandi and Elgeyo Marakwet reside in Eldoret, which coincidentally, Madam Speaker, is your county, and we are very gracious that you are hosting almost 4 governors in your county. And therefore, even as we construct, we prioritize based on this, because even the Nandi County governor does not live in Nandi, but he lives in Eldoret, or Uasin Gishu County. And therefore, I agree that we need to fast track so that our county governments can run and ensure them. Secondly, I think the previous construction of county governments, governors' residence, deputy governors' residence, county assembly speakers, you would find 100 million to 250 million. It was causing a lot of uproar because people are saying, ECD, where are the ECDs, where are the dispensaries, where are the roads, where are the drugs, where are the bursaries? Yet in a rural county governments, there are so many, to spend 100 to 150 million building a home is too way high. And I'm happy that the SRC, and in consultation with the committee, have set the maximum capping. And I hope there will be a mechanism to monitor this, because, and I hope the chairperson of Budget and Finance will ensure they follow up on this, because governor's residence has now been capped at 45 million, deputy governors at 35 million, speaker's residence at 35 million, county headquarters 500 million. And I hope the chairman of Budget and Finance must do proper follow-up so that we don't exceed this capping, so that the 45 million, 35 million, 35 million, and 500 million should be followed. Unlike what we are having, it was causing an uproar. People are saying the purpose of devolution was to ensure they take care of us. They promote equal and equitable distribution of resources and development in all villages, in all counties. But now it was looking like we are enriching a few by ensuring that, by only making that we give 5-star treatment to the governors and the county assembly speakers. Madam Speaker, because I had only a few so that our people, my colleagues can comment on this, is that I've gone through observations, and I think the issue of rent, we should agree that even as we agree that we extend the timeline was supposed to be 20th June, should be rescinded. And I think we should have a mechanisms, even as we agree that there should be extension of time. From SRC, we should agree that we move in a more convenient way so that we don't go to 3rd generation of devolution. Some of these things, Madam Speaker, we should finish. In fact, the latest should have been the 2nd generation of devolution, because constructing governor's residence, county headquarters, chambers, county headquarters, deputy governor's residence, speaker's residence should have been done in the 1st generation of the devolution. And I want to urge Budget and Finance that they should not give more time. If they extend about 2 to 3 years, so that we conclude and ensure that devolution settles and works for the people. Secondly, of course, there are many counties that, like Omabe County, had allocated 150 million for the Speaker's House, Muranga 350 million for residents of governor and deputy governor and speaker. Nyeri County had allocated 200 million for the governor's residence, Kirinyaga 100 million. And therefore, I think what is important, number 3, and I want to agree with the committees, that let us have a design standardization and they have a tight prototype on what should be built. Say that the house of a governor in Nairobi should look like the house of a governor in Kisumu County, in Moyale, in Kariza, with modification of a few things, maybe in line to heritage or symbolism that they want to bring and ensure they have the place. Finally, Madam Speaker, I know there are ongoing county governments headquarters. Other counties have finished construction of county assembly chambers. Others, the Speaker, maybe are ongoing. The issue of renegotiation and the issue of pending bill, which is around 110 billion, that our counties and even the National Treasury, the President himself has tried to address this matter of 110 billion or more pending bills in our counties. Even as we renegotiate, Madam Speaker, the Chair of Budget and Finance, because somebody might have been given and awarded a contract of maybe 100 million to construct maybe a house in County A or County B. Therefore, we should look, because we would not want to risk, and I hope the Chair of Finance is taking note and the committee. We should not risk another legal impediment to some of these projects, because the moment you renegotiate a contract, and if there was no clause that would allow for renegotiating, then we are risking a lot of legal suits, because we will now be telling the contract that you are given of 150 million in building governance residency in point X has now been reduced to 45 million. And I know we should look on a way to ensure that we do it in amicable, or we do it through alternative dispute resolution, so that we don't have many court cases or court orders gagging some of these projects, of ensuring that we succeed with this second generation of devolution. Finally, Madam Speaker, is that as we look forward, as we make sure our governors are comfortable, as we make sure our deputy governors are comfortable, as we make sure the speakers are comfortable, I will ensure they have well air-conditioned offices through the county headquarters, as we ensure we build county assembly chambers for our members of county assembly. If we have done that, they must rise up to the call of serving the people wholeheartedly and ensure devolution works. The reason we are making the environment more enabling is for them to ensure in the principle and in substance and the spirit of Article 174 of devolution should be in them, in their DNA. Say that if all this, maybe they were saying we don't have enough office space, we don't have proper chambers, we don't have a house where I can do consultations with my CC, or even when I'm having visitors or investors coming, where I can host them and discuss development agenda of the county. Now we are going to give it to them. But in return, they should also work for the people. And I want to finish by challenging the Council of Governors that let us have a peer, they should do their own peer review as governors on what they are doing in terms of ensuring that devolution works for Kenya. Even the speakers through their county assembly forum, they must challenge themselves through the peer review. What are they doing? Which legislations are they passing? We saw yesterday the Auditor's General report that some counties are spending too much on foreign travels. And Madam Speaker, some of these foreign travels are very interesting. Some of the people want to go to see where Jesus was born. That's very interesting. For us who are Christians, we know Jesus Christ has been born in our hearts. Why should you go to waste taxpayers' money by visiting things that are not important, that does not add any significance to the development agenda of that particular county? So the ball is on their side. Devolution must work. They must work for the people. And we hope as we make devolution work for the people, they should ensure that it works for all of them. Madam Speaker, I thank you and I support.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Haji Faria Ali.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support and the House to pass a resolution to support I'm requesting the House to pass resolution to support this report. Madam Speaker, the initial even estimates given by CRA in terms of even governor's residents was 267,980. And when we inquired why such high figures, the reason we got was that they were thinking of the same status as the State House, Madam Speaker. How can a governor have a resident that is equivalent to State House, honestly? Madam Speaker, in 2010, Kenyans voted overwhelmingly for our new constitution with the hope that services will be brought closer to them, and that is what they demand. Madam Speaker, despite despite all of us knowing those requirements, there was a proposal to build a governor's house for 268 million. Then a deputy governor's house 174, speaker's house 174. Surely, is that essential services for service delivery? Why would you build such an expensive residence for people who are just serving, who are supposed to be humble enough to serve our communities, Madam Speaker? There was also a sample study done to just check the budget provisions for non-essential infrastructure. And what we've discovered is Kilifi County had 214 million for a deputy governor's residence. And Kilifi County is one of the poorest counties. Surely, where is our priority in this issue? Madam Speaker, Nyandarua County had also 800,000 budgetary provision, 800 million budgetary provision for building of county headquarters. And right now, the committee is proposing 500. So taxpayers' money being saved 300 million. Madam Speaker, the same Kilifi County is also proposing a speaker's house for 200 million, Madam Speaker. And then look at also your own county, Madam Speaker. They are proposing 850 million for, there is a budgetary provision for that at the time when we were doing this report, of 850 million, Madam Speaker. While the maximum that the committee is proposing is 750, Madam Speaker. At least yours is even within, the margin is not that bad. But imagine a deputy speaker's house for 200 million. Seriously? Madam Speaker, the other thing I wanted to ask, of course, that right now our committee should demand for status of the current contracts that they have, that the county government has already engaged. Where there is an option, a clause in the contract where it can be reduced, so be it. The ones that can't be reduced, of course, now we can't go back when already there is an existing contract. But we need to request for the current status. And after the resolution of this report, Madam Speaker, our committee should also write to Council of Governors in terms of the decision of this House, so that it doesn't become that we've just came here, debated, the committee wasted a lot of their precious time doing this report, and at the end of the day, nothing comes of it. Madam Speaker, the other one I wanted to bring to your attention is that also there is already a contractual obligation already to some contracts that have already started. For example, Isiolo, for the county headquarters, is 870 million, Madam Speaker. Tana River, that's also another poor county, Madam Speaker. 900 million, Madam Speaker. Where is the conscience of these people that these respective counties have given them their mandate to represent them, Madam Speaker? Honestly, how many poor mothers who can't even afford? We have people who are dying of hunger. We have not even secured water for those people. Yet, we can afford to waste whooping 900 million, whooping 870 million for a county headquarters, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think the proposal by this committee is based, the current proposal that we have is based on designs that were done by Ministry of Works, where there is, even the governor's residence up to like even 2 acres and all that. And it is designed in such a way that there is uniformity in that residence, like already that has been taken care of in its design. Madam Speaker, there was even a proposal that some counties had of 10 acres, for example, Madam Speaker, for a governor's residence. Why do you need all that space, Madam Speaker, when we Kenyans are dying of hunger and we need food security and there is even no space to do farming, Madam Speaker. Where is priority in this country, Madam Speaker? Who speaks for the poor, Madam Speaker? I think this House, or I don't know, we were told that part of the budgeting that is done, corruption is already embedded in those budgets. So unless that is the case, then I think it is very unreasonable for anybody to start imagining that a county government that is, a county that is as poor as Tana River, there is 900 million proposal to do a contract, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there was also a deadline by SRC, Madam Speaker, to finish construction of this infrastructure, Madam Speaker. And I think through the resolution of this House, maybe that circular, because of the fact that we also do not agree with the figures that they provided, I think by the resolution of this House, also that Gazette notice should be recalled or expunged, whatever language that we might want to use, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, given that right now the kind of drought that some Kenyans have died, Madam Speaker, there is going to be some rain now already. What this county government should have been thinking is to create the infrastructure to collect rainwater so that at the end of the day, when counties, there is drought, Madam Speaker, between rains and other times, there is enough water to irrigate so that there is, food security in our counties, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, resources are never enough in whichever context that you look at it. But resources can be enough depending on how prudently those resources have been used, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think counties are supposed to be self-sustaining in their future, Madam Speaker. And for them to have that income-generating capacity to continue giving services, Madam Speaker, there is need for prudent investment in the money that goes to our counties, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think even when we speak about constitution, Madam Speaker, I think there is also need to ensure that we entrench certain parameters in our constitution to guarantee proper livelihoods, proper health, proper, industrialization jobs for our youth. And we have, Madam Speaker, a very big youth population that we need to feed and we need to provide an employment. Madam Speaker, we cannot afford to lose foresight to ensure that we deliver services to our community, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I support the report of the committee and I request this House to adopt the committee. I wish to support, Madam Speaker. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Pareno, Judith Ramaita.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute and to really say that I fully support this report of the Committee on Finance and Budget on these infrastructure projects of the executive headquarters, the county executive headquarters, the chambers, and the residences, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I was looking at this report and I think we really have a long way to go when it comes to this devolution aspect. The other day, Madam Speaker, the Auditor General actually told us that some counties had spent zero on development. My county, Kajiado County, was one of them. Zero on development. Then you find, Madam Speaker, in this report, observations of this committee, and then the outcry by the citizens about wastage of money. And Madam Speaker, look at what we have in this report on Homa Bay County, that they had set aside 150 million for the Speaker's house. Murang'a County had set aside 350 million for the residence of the governor. the deputy, and the speaker. Nyeri County had set aside 200 million for the governor's residence. And then Kirinyaga County had set aside 100 million for the governor's residence. Yet, some of these counties spend zero on development, on that which touches on directly on the citizens, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am happy that out of all this outcry by the citizens and coming out as a recommendation, I am happy that now we have, there are suggestions on the capping, so that it has been recommended that the county governor's offices should not spend more than 45 million. The county deputy governors should not spend more than 35 million. And the county assembly speakers should not spend more than 35. Madam Speaker, if we didn't do this, and if the CRA had not come out to intervene, Madam Speaker, would have wasted so much money that is meant to be for service to the public. Madam Speaker, in as much as we are not saying that there should not be residences, we are not saying that we should not have residence for our governors, we are not saying that we should not have residence for our speakers, we are not even saying that there should not be chambers. We should have chambers, we should have houses, we should have residences, but not at the expense of development. We should have these residences, we should have the chambers, but not with exorbitant prices. That is all that this Senate is saying. That is all that the CRA is saying. And Madam Speaker, that is what Mwananchi is saying. In fact, the citizens' outcry was because they are saying, we want to see development. If only they had brought water, if only they had done roads, if only they had done schools, dispensaries, I can assure you, and if only they were not exorbitant prices, I can assure you that the citizens would not have come out to cry. I can assure you that all of us would not have come to have to do a capping. Incidentally, Madam Speaker, in this country, nobody just seems to do things right. People have to be forced to do things right. We have had to come with cappings for people to do things right. You have to keep checking, otherwise there'll be plunder on the money that is meant to be for development. Madam Speaker, I'm also happy that there is a capping that the county government should ensure that the cost of the chambers should not go beyond a certain limit, so that then we have even a standard way. I am happy that this committee and these recommendations are geared towards a standard way of doing things, so that we have standard chambers with our county assemblies, not so big, not so small, depending on the numbers. We have standard residences, so that we stop this wastage of public funds, and it will not be like it is a choice for one to decide how much, but it is with guided principles, and I'm happy that this has come out clearly in this report. What we need to do, Madam Speaker, from this report is to ensure that these recommendations are going to be followed. Madam Speaker, I have kept talking about implementation committee. We keep saying that we need to follow up on whether these resolutions and recommendations are being followed up. We need to also communicate properly to the county assemblies that the capping is there, that if you exceed the capping, it will be upon you to answer to it. You shall be held accountable. That if you have already started construction of your chambers, of your residences, of your infrastructure, then if you have exceeded, then you need to find a way of capping down to what has been guided. So quickly after these resolutions, we need to follow up to ensure that this capping and this communication and recommendations have gone down to the county assemblies, so that they start talking to their contractors, ensure that they don't go above these cappings that have been set. Less, then we will have to start holding them accountable. Well, Madam Speaker, it is not in vain. It is all because of value for money. Value for the citizens to be able to see that there is value in what has been done. And again, we don't want to see those zero developments, surely. You go make for yourself a very big house, make yourself comfortable in your residence, and you spend nothing on development. That should not be. It should actually be the other way around. You would better have no house as a governor. You would better have no residence as a speaker. You would better even not have a good chamber if it means that my mother does not have water. If it means that that lady in the village does not have a dispensary. If it means that the ladies that the children are suffering, they cannot even have a proper maternal health care. If it means you going without a residence as a governor, it would better be than to use this money to do for yourself a lavish house and leave those people suffering. That should have been secondary. Madam Speaker, I'm concerned about the contradictory circulars by CRA and by SRC. Surely we should not have this happening. We should not have CRA saying that let us give priority to development, and then Salaries and Remuneration Commission goes and says let us have houses, and then they allow them to rent. We should not have that contradicting communication from the two commissions. We should be able to guide our county assemblies and speak in one voice when it comes to this development. And I am happy that now with these recommendations, we have merged both the concerns of the CRA and the concerns of SRC when it comes to how these things are supposed to be done, Madam Speaker. I am also happy that in the recommendations, we are asking that they rescind the earlier circular so that it gives these county assemblies time to digest these resolutions, recommendations, and be able to comply. And also for us not to just rush into programs, and then you give such a short time, you release money in a short time, and you tell them you have not completed. That is how we end up having white elephants. So that circular should be rescinded as communicated, so that then these county assemblies have the time to be able to comply and be able to construct their residences, their chambers within time, and to be able to account to what they are doing, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I also want to say that we cannot avoid using money. What we are saying is that let us use it prudently. We cannot devolve services, but not escort these services with the expenditure that is required. We are saying, yes, the money should be used, but prudently. I support, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Masitsa Naomi Shionga.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And I support this report. Madam Speaker, this report is timely, and it's a good report that is really the need for implementation of the same is wanting. Madam Speaker, if you look at the report, or if you go through the report, there is much that has been discussed, and there's much that has been observed with this particular committee. And there is a need, a total need for us, or for this House to be given money for implementation, especially in the committee that will be formed for implementation and oversight. Madam Speaker, if you look at the quotation of the monies that are being put into these structures or these projects, these are just going to be white elephants as we have seen in the past. Madam Speaker, if you look at the budget, this is a total mislead with whoever did this budget, especially the SRC, where there is need for us to look at it and make sure that the implementation of what has been recommended here and what has been passed here in this report is done and dealt with. Madam Speaker, as much as we are looking at our county governments being given good housing to facilitate them do their work, as much as we are looking at our assemblies at the county government, our executive at the county government, we do not need to go overboard. We do not need to apply the syndrome of corruption in this particular issue. The projects that have been started, I like in the report when they say they should be standardized through prototype, through structures and a design. And where, Madam Speaker, we have already established counties, like Nairobi here, where we have buildings that are worthy, then we need actually to revisit the same. Madam Speaker, if you look at the budget, these budgets are worthy, doing so many projects to our counties. When we came up with devolution as Kenyans, we came up with the devolution to offer services, to Kenyans. And we don't want to see governments whereby we are robbing our Kenyans by coming up with palatial homes that individuals need to stay in palatial homes instead of individuals like executives and county governments offering services. If you look at the budget again, this is total robbing of Kenyans. Kenyans are dying right now as much as we are refusing. And we are seeing people being given money to build palatial homes. Who said that this money is for palatial homes? And this is going to encourage governors to fight, or executives to fight for longer term stay in these houses. If you allow somebody to build a house, who says that these houses, somebody will allow herself or himself to live that house? So what we are saying here, it is that we need to look at where the money is going, and the money should be directly to Kenyan citizens. Money should be directly to be resourced, to be monies that are going to assist our citizens and not luring them into doubts of the government that we are coming out. Madam Speaker, I just want to say that this report, whoever that came up with, if you look at the leadership, we need our governors, we need our executives to perform from a more comfortable environment. Even us here, we want more comfortable environment. But if we do not standardize things, if we do not look at issues at hand, and we look at luxuries, what we are talking here, or what this SRC have done here, it is all about luxuries. And that is not what we need. We want to see development projects that are actually beneficial to Kenyans. Development projects that are actually going to sustain Kenyans, to see a Kenya that is worthy, and not a Kenya that is crying foul. So I want to say that, Madam Speaker, I support this report, and I'm really against the budget that were put there, and I'm supporting the implementations and the observations that are here, and how it's my prayer here that we come up with an implementation committee as fast as possible. We look at the issues being implemented. The issues, there are many issues that we have passed in this house that have not been implemented, and it is going to be just a talking story. We need these issues to be implemented through a committee that will be facilitated, so that when we discuss an issue here, which is touching devolution and which is touching our citizens, it is an issue that is going to be resorted, and it is an issue that is going to be dealt with immediately without wasting Kenyans' time. Because Kenyans want to see people working, Kenyans want to see people, want to see results of this particular devolution. So, Madam Speaker, I support this report, and I acknowledge those who worked on this report, but again, let us have implementation, let us have money for oversight, let us go down there and make sure that what has been passed here is being put into action, it is being put into practice, and we cap any wastage in terms of finance, in terms of projects, in terms of budgets. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the report.
Senator Professor Kamar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity you have given me to support this report from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on county government infrastructure projects. Madam Speaker, I rise to support for the very simple reason that there is need for standards as far as our county developments are concerned. Mr. Speaker, when we look at the report, we realize that our governors and even the county assemblies had initiated development projects with completely varied bills of quantities. From the same country, different bills of quantities, different dimensions of infrastructure. One has an office of 9,000 square meters. Another one has 7,000 square meters. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, it's very important that we standardize and we have a prototype. And that's why I support this committee, that we need to come up with a county assembly that is standardized in the whole country. Madam Speaker, so that the variation is only on cost of materials, but the maximum ceiling has been given. This is very, very important for us. It's also very important for us to know that when we talk of the residence of a governor only has a maximum of 10 years. So it is very important to know that we are building it for the county, not for the specific governor, not for the specific speaker or any other person, but we are building it for the county. And there is no need to be so extravagant the way we have seen the proposals that the Commission of Revenue has expressed in this report, because we realize that as they gathered information, this committee discovered not only the variability, but the wastage that was going to take place. Madam Speaker, we do not know how anybody decided that the house they wanted to live in was going to cost 400 million, 800 million. A house, Madam Speaker, one house where we have one individual that is a governor only for 10 years. I think that would be wastage that will be remembered as a country for. Wastage is not going to be recovered. So I really support these ceilings that have come in, that a residence, a normal residence, like the houses that we live in, should be developed for our governors. 45 million shillings is a very good figure. A deputy governor at 35 million shillings will give us a very good house. And even the acreage that has been given and expressed here in this report is acreage that is normal, because there is no reason why you need an office inside 10 acres of land. Madam Speaker, if we allowed this kind of development to continue, we would see a complete difference and disconnect between the buildings that we have for our county governments and those that we have under development. Madam Speaker, we are talking of schools. We have had debates about our schools. The teachers' unions have been complaining that they live in dilapidated houses and go to dilapidated laboratories to teach under dilapidated buildings. I think as we devolve, we should be conscious of where we are as a country and the kind of development that we must have for our institutions, because our institutions will cater for more people than the houses that we live in. I therefore support very strongly the report that has been given by this committee, and I support the ceilings that they have given. County headquarters, 500 million is a lot of money. Madam Speaker, to build a county headquarters for anything more than 500 million, when our secondary schools from Form 1 to Form 4, we spend less than 4 million shillings, would really mean that there's a lot of extravagance, unless somebody else from the moon is building this. But if we are really building using the same materials, we are using the same contractors, then we must be conscious of the fact that the costs are exactly the same. I want to thank the National Housing Corporation for doing the measurements meticulously and actually coming up with figures that are reasonable. Because it was going to be a shame for us to build houses for ourselves or for our governors and for our speakers at costs that are unimaginable, because it looks like $1 million is nothing in this country. And that's why you can hear somebody talking of a building of 800 million. So, Madam Speaker, mine is to support the ceilings that have come and to urge the committee that they must monitor implementation, because as a Senate, our role really borders on oversight. We must ensure that the interests of the counties and the county governments are taken care of, and in that role, we expect this committee to monitor and make sure that we are done. Madam Speaker, I want to support what a member said earlier, that this is an agenda that belongs to the first group of county governments. But we are failing this round, therefore, we must finish. We need to set a deadline and to make sure that within the next year or two, we have completed the development of both the residences of our county government officials and the county assembly and county government headquarters. Most of our headquarters, and I can mention that for Uasin Gishu in particular, are actually within buildings that have already been done by the county councils for the mayors. So the amount of work that is going to be done within these headquarters, in some cases, will not be as much as what we are seeing in these documents as proposals that have been given. So what our expectation would be is that this committee of budget continues to monitor the development so that we ensure that at the end of the day, we get value, because some counties will not spend the 500 million we are talking about. Even others will not spend the 35 million for the speakers' residence because of the variability within the country. We know in some places the stones that we are talking about are cheaper than in other places. We are talking of cement and sand being cheaper in other places compared to other places. So we really need to get value for money. And again, it is very important as I wind up that we actually not only get value for money, but get decent buildings without being extravagant. With those remarks, Madam Speaker, I support.
Senator Imana Malaki Charles Ekal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the chance also to contribute to this particular report. I rise to support the report in that we need to have a prototype within the establishment of these counties, such that every county has a certain structure on which they base the buildings they build for their assemblies and for their governors, such that when you look at a structure, you can tell for sure that that is the governor's office, or that is the assembly for that particular county. Now, this is important because of what my fellow senators have already given, that one, there should be limits, because human beings have this hunger of wanting to be better than somebody else. So if you just do not put their limits that limit the amount of money that can be spent on such a buildings, on such a structures, some people are going to come with fancy ideas that I want my office to look like this, I want my office to be this wide, I want my office to be this large. I know of a deputy governor who has his office larger than that of the governor. Such ridiculous dimensions do not really make that deputy governor better than his governor or better than anybody else. So we should have limits as to how much money can be spent in building these structures, in making these buildings. As Professor Kamara said, the amount of money that should be spent on these structures is not really the same in all the counties, because in some counties, the materials that are being used to build
are cheaper than elsewhere in the country. So there should be a certain limit at which we say you can only spend so much and probably save money for other things, especially in a county like Turkana where people are now hungry. We would rather save this money to buy people food instead of building wild, unimaginable, colossal structures. Another thing, Madam Speaker, is the fact that when people build, you know, I find it ridiculous that when people build or even wear, people wear, like you see, I'm wearing this suit. This suit may not be suited to the climate of Kenya. This is probably a suit I should be wearing in some cold place. So when you're making structures, say building now in a county like Turkana, which is pretty hot at about 42 degrees Celsius, the structures, even though we may have a standard kind of option to build, it should be built in such a way that it takes into account the temperature situations in those particular counties. Like in Turkana, I would rather people build knowing that it's going to get hot. So then design structures within that particular model that can keep the place cool so that those who are inside can be comfortable. Otherwise, when all of us build with block and this and that, you know, some of those materials may not be necessary. In places where you don't have a lot of rain, in places where you have wind, maybe you build structures that are tailored to what is really, what happens in that particular county. Like I said, wind, like I said, heat. So structures, even though standardized, can as well be designed in such a way that they fit the situation of that particular county. Otherwise, sometimes, Madam Speaker, I think that our people do things without thinking. People should be able to look at what is available and look at the situation and tailor the buildings to that particular situation based on where they are. Otherwise, the idea of standardization throughout the country should save people money, should save the country money, and that money can be used for other things. So I support the statement, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
There being no other requests, I therefore call upon Senator Mahmoud.
Madam Speaker, on a point of order, pursuant to Standing Order 6213, I request that you defer putting of the question to a later date.
Some guidance? You don't have any reply? Maybe you put it on record.
Madam Speaker, let me thank the members who have contributed and supported. I think everybody supported. This is a very important report. As members have said, I think it's important once we have the resolution of the House, we forward it to the various institutions, oversight institutions, so that these matters are brought to attention, so that, you know, we make sure that there's some sanity in the counties as far as building infrastructure is concerned. So I thank everybody, and with those few remarks, I beg to move. And pursuant to Standing Order 613, I request that the putting of the question be deferred to a later date.
I do order that the report, the putting of the question of the report be deferred to another date when it will next appear in the order paper. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, the realization of gender equity in elective and appointive positions in Kenya.
I am informed that the mover of this motion is not present to move, and this matter is therefore also deferred. Next.
Order number 10, motion, completion of all stalled projects under county governments through budgetary management.
Honorable Senators, I am advised that the movers of order number 10, order number 11, order number 12, order number 14, order number 15, are not present, and therefore all those matters are deferred to another date. Next order.
Order number 16, motion. Order number 15, motion, report of the Parliament of Kenya delegation to the Global Summit on Open Governance Partnership.
Chairperson, Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights, are you ready to move? Order 15?
I'm not ready to move because the seconder is not, I didn't travel. So the members who travel are not in the house to second. So I request, Madam Speaker, that you defer until a later date. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, the matters, order number 15 and order number 16 are also both deferred for lack of seconders. The movers are here, but the seconders are not here. What point of order, Senator Farhia?
Madam Speaker, the orders are circulated normally in advance. For those who knew that the order was going to be there, I'm not talking about the chairman of legal JLAC only, I'm just talking generally. Order papers are circulated in time, and if people have no excuse of not being present, I think this House the Speaker had ruled that we drop unless they had an excuse and they spoke to the Speaker, then their motions are dropped. Madam Speaker, I thank you. I wanted the Madam Speaker to give her direction on that matter, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
Yes, I noted that you, without saying, you are seeking for directions on what we do with people who seek that their matters be listed in the order paper, but are not there to prosecute them. You will note that we have actually deferred almost the rest of the order paper. We've only transacted just one business, and I thank Senator Mahmood for being there to always prosecute his business, and of course our chair legal. You have really tried your best to be there to prosecute. I thank those that have been there to prosecute. But those who are not there to be able to transact business, it is getting sad that we have to adjourn at this moment for not lack of business in the order paper, but for the lack of the movers, the absence of the movers that are supposed to move. So my order on this one is that I will pick up this matter and we take that concern to the next meeting of the Speaker's panel and the House business, so that then we see how to address this matter. Otherwise, we'll then be going back to the same old story where we were saying, at one point we were complaining about chairs not being there. At one point we had to redo our orders because we were never receiving answers to the statements. Now we are back to having an order paper that has all the business, but without people to move them. So that one, I take it back to the House business, and probably the Speaker's panel to sit and agree on how we are going to handle that. So a report will be given after such consultation. Order, Senators. There being no other business in the House, the House therefore stands adjourned to Tuesday, 2nd April 2019 at 2:30 p.m.